Hello, and thanks for joining me today for this tutorial on how to use the D2L question builder tool. In order to be able to complete this work and follow along with this video, you in fact will need to download the D2L question builder, the most current version. In order to be able to locate that, you will be looking to open up the electrical section quality control standards document and scroll through it to be able to find the link. Okay, so the first thing that we want to look at is the utilization of this tool to be able to generate standard coding for questions. So the first tab that I would like to focus you in on is the Tools tab of this question builder once you've opened those things up. And you can see here we've got a whole bunch of drop-down boxes, and there is a link to the training profile. So I'm just going to open that training profile up right now. We obviously are working to satisfy the outcomes and objectives inside any given training profile for a program. So in this case, the electrician program is we're going to choose to focus in on. We're going to drill down a little bit further into the training profile, and in this case we're going to look at second period to be able to generate our question code. In second period, the next level that comes is the section that has been prescribed to this. Under the section we have our module number, and then of course within the modules we are in fact going to have objectives. So in this case, for the tutorial that I'm gonna build a couple questions with you, we're going to focus in on second period, section 1, module A, objective number 1, which is perform arithmetic operations in sequence using BEDMAS. All right. So to be able to accomplish this work, what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the drop-down menu on the Tools page of this D2L question builder, and we're going to find the correct program. So in this case, it's going to be ELP, and you're going to notice that this is changing in the generated code. We said we were going to be talking about second period, so we'll enter that in now, and you'll see changes in the code. We indicated that it was in fact section number 1 off the training profile, so we're going to generate that. We said we wanted to build a couple of questions associated with module A, so we'll throw in module A, and we are going to be focusing in on objective number 1. So we've got our code being generated right now. The nice thing about that is if you go and have a look at the title of the template options that we have for the questions in multiple choice, true, false, or matching, you can scroll down and see all of the options that you have available. The code already has been generated inside this template for you. All right. So in order to get to work, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to identify the type of question that we would like to build in order to be able to support the student's understanding of that given objective. So I'm going to come over here and I am going to select the true and false. I'm going to highlight all of the cells, and I am simply going to copy those cells with the associated template. Now the D2L question builder tab is going to be your working table. So you can see in this working table there was already a multiple choice template loaded up for you. And as you go and build your question bank for any given objective, you can simply take and add those templates in as you need. All right. So now we are in fact ready to go, and we want to make sure that we are going back in this point of the development and referring to the electrical section quality control standards and making sure that the work that we are in fact going to do is going to be in alignment with the rubric. Okay, so once we feel pretty confident that we've read all of that information and we are going to be developing work that is going to be acceptable, we can maybe start here with the multiple choice question. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to develop the stem of the question. So I'm just going to try and provide you with some simple example. Let's go with what is the solution of 3 times 3, let's say plus 4. Okay, Okay, so just a nice simple calculation-based question. So that's all we need to do there. Underneath this will give us the ability to add additional lines in D2L for what the students see if we do in fact need it. So it says if we don't need it, we're just going to delete that. So I'm going to do that now. And that's all that we're going to see presented for the question when we load that in. Okay, so I've seen a formatting issue there. I'm going to have to add a space in between the solution here, or the question. All right, so then the next thing that we're going to be looking at doing is to be able to put our solutions or our answers in here to the question. So one of the things identified in the rubric is setting up the answers in an ascending or a descending order. So I'm going to put 10, 11, I'm going to put 13, I'm going to put 21. And then I guess we're going to have to try and identify what is going to be the proper solution of 3 times 3 plus 4. I don't know. Let's try this. I'm going to identify this in this case with 100 and change this one to 0 to identify to the D2L system once we load this in that 13 is in fact going to be the correct answer. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to have to do is to be able to determine the difficulty level here. So there's a little prompt beside the cell to let you know what's going on. It is also addressed in the QC guideline there. So in this case, we're dealing with a calc-based question or a process-based question. So I'm going to assign this difficulty as 2. And that's going to get loaded in when we take our CSV file and we put it into D2L. So we've got our question code going on, we've got our question, we've got our answers, the distractors in play here, we've set up our difficulty, and the final thing that we're going to need to do is we are going to be adding feedback to these questions. So this first line of feedback code that we're going to be providing is going to be consistent whether it is code, theory, or lab. So what we're going to want to do in this feedback line 1 is we are going to want to refer to the training profile. So the stated objective in the training profile is what we are looking to grab and put into this cell. So I'm simply going to copy that. I'm going to bounce back to the sheet here, and I am going to add that line of text by just merging it with the destination. All right, so there is word for word the AIT training profile. And then we have 3 additional lines of feedback that could in fact be provided. From a theory or lab perspective, we are going with the module identifier as feedback, and we are going with the AIT stated objective as feedback. The additional lines would be required in code here. We're going to look to identify the section. Okay. We're going to identify the subsection in the code, and then the next one that we are going to look to identify is the rule title. Okay, so this is going to be a change from what we've done in the past. We are looking to identify the rule title rather than the code rule specifically, so that in the event that the codebook changes, which I guess it does often, we're not going to have to address those numbers. All right, so hopefully we're feeling pretty confident that we have developed out our multiple choice question. We're good with that. We want to come down here and maybe look at this true and false. Okay, so since I'm dealing with all of these questions at the same level for the objective, I'm just going to throw that objective in this question, and all of the strings of questions that are going to be on this page would be sharing the same objective. That's how we're breaking it down. Okay. In this case, it's a theory-based question, so I'm going to delete all of this feedback. It's not going to be code feedback. I'll go back up here and I'll do the same thing. I'll delete that, this, and then this would be the feedback that is required for a theoretical question. So this series of questions is going to be true and false now. So once again, I'm going to have to come in and provide that information. So we'll write a question down. When performing arithmetic operations in sequence. Using BEDMAS. Addition is completed. Before multiplication. Okay, so that's a statement unto itself. So in this case, we are not going to be requiring this paragraph or that paragraph, so I'm going to delete them. Okay, we have included the feedback from a theoretical perspective of just the objective as a stated mandate. We are looking to now assign the difficulty of this question. This is going to be consistent as you go through each and every question. I'm going to call this one a recall question, which means the difficulty is at level 1. And then we're simply going to have to identify which is going to be the proper solution to the question. So I would say that maybe that is false. I'm going to change this one to 100, change this one to 0, and we are ready to go. So we would continue to go along and build questions as needed to be able to fill up a bank sufficiently to examine an objective. But now we are ready to export this into D2L and see what this is going to look like. Before we do that, I want to talk about situations that may occur for you, and that's going to be identifying if we need to provide some additional resources to this question. Like say we're missing a drawing. Part of the initiative is to associate drawings with the specific question in D2L rather than having the figures module. So if we did have a question that was missing some required information to be able to successfully complete the question, we are looking for you to identify this in a second layer of feedback for us. So the first thing that we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to put an asterisk beside it. Okay. After we put the asterisk beside it, what we would like you to do is identify what figures module the image that we're going to need is going to be located in, and then identify which figure it is. Okay, so that'll give us the ability to pick up whether we are having to go hunt down some additional resources for standardization. All right, so we're all done now so that we can follow these examples through into D2L. What I'm going to want to do is to export them into an appropriate file. So we are going to look at our options now in order to be able to change this. So we are going to select export. When we select export, we are going to need to come down and change the file type. So the file that we are looking to select is the CSV file. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to select the CSV file. Okay, and it's going to ask us to identify what we would like to call this file. Okay, so in this case, what we want to do is we want to use the same code that was generated, which is going to be right down here, ELP2-1A1-, so that it keeps it very consistent. So I'm going to name it ELP 1A1-. Okay, so now I'm just going to confirm that it does in fact match. Feeling good about that. And I want to save this to my desktop so I can just transfer it easily over. Okay, one thing that you're going to notice when you go to do that is you're going to have a pop-up that indicates that this is only able to save the active sheets. So we are most certainly working in this D2L question builder. We've built ourselves a pile of questions, and this is what it's considering the active sheets. So we're going to select OK, and that is now going to be our CSV file for the questions that we've built. So we're all done with the question builder tool now. What we want to do is we want to look at the importation into D2L. Okay, so we are starting off here with blank masters. Okay, Okay, so the master that I'm looking to do the work in is my second period electrician development master, so I'm going to select on that. The next thing that we are going to be looking to do is get into the assessments. So once we're into the assessments, we're going to select quizzes or tests, sorry. And once we're in the tests, the next thing that we're going to be looking to do is select the question library. Once we have selected the question library, you're going to see it populated with all of the module numbers. So in this case, we are looking for the very first module, section 1, module A. So we're going to open that up, and this is the first level of the file system that we're using. So what we want to be doing is we want to be adding new sections underneath modules. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to select Go. I'm going to add a section. Okay. Now the section title is going to be important. What we want to do for the section title is we want to identify first the section that it's in, the module that it came out of, and the objective number that we are in fact going to be working in. So I'm going to save that, and you'll see that a new folder showed up. So the parent is going to be the module. The children of the parent are going to be the specific objective. So we could have 1A2, 1A3, 1A4 as we go through the module and we build up the individual question banks. So now I want to work in this folder. I want to take the questions that I built and I want to throw them in the associated objective. So I'm simply going to open that up. And now I'm going to have an opportunity to import my questions. So I am going to select that as a drop-down menu. I am going to choose to upload the file. And then I'm looking for the CSV file that I just produced on my desktop. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to throw it on to the upload. And I am going to import all of the questions that were found on that CSV file. Okay, so we now will see those questions show up in our coding here. You can see that they're all associated with section 1, module A, objective number 1. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to go in and we want to check these questions out to see how they look before we're sending them off to approval. You'll notice that after the dash here, we don't have a question number assigned. The QC team is going to be assigning those numbers as we go, but we want to talk about a few other things before we get there. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to look at making sure everything looks exactly the same. Okay, so we come down, and before we do anything, we want to get rid of the enumeration. Okay, so I'll just select that and show you what's happening there. You'll see that it no longer says A, B, C, and D beside all of the numbers. The numbers are in an ascending order, so we're feeling pretty good about that. And we're going to be looking at the stream of the question to make sure it isn't in fact in alignment with the guidelines. All of the distractors, are they in alignment with the guidelines? And then finally, we are also going to be looking at determining whether we have any additional information that needs to be supplied so that we can actually answer these questions. All right, so in order to be able to identify this properly before we close it down, since we were able to identify that there is some challenges here with this one, if there is any information missing that we're going to have to deal with, whether that is a math-based question or something that's going to require imagery to be included, mark it with a double X behind it. We're going to be able to come in and we're going to be able to look at the feedback to identify what we are going to need to include in this question to be able to consider it closed. And then we'll come back, save it, and you'll see here in the question coding, the QC people will easily be able to identify that this question requires attention, and they'll be able to do a little bit more research in it. All right, so I just want to go into my next one. I believe that was a true and false. I want to make sure that it's going to look the same as everything else. We don't have to do a whole heck of a lot. We're going to come over here and we're going to be trying to get rid of these A's and the B's. So in order to do that, we're going to select remove enumeration. Okay, and now we can examine the question in this form to determine if it's in alignment with the QC guidelines here. All right, so we're feeling good with that. We're going to save it. Okay, and once the QC team accepts it, we'll see a number show up behind it. Okay, so once we're done all of that, we want to go in here and we want to finish all of our questions. We're feeling good that our question library has been developed associated with module 030201A. And if we look underneath it, we've got ourselves objectives. This will obviously build as we go on. And we have completed the development of questions in the Excel Builder tool. We have transferred those questions into the D2L and we have saved them. Thanks for joining me today and watching this tutorial. If you require additional information as to what the CQ process is going to look like, please consider reviewing back to the Electrical Section Quality Control Standards 2020 or ask the CQ team what's going on. Have a great one.